Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Thursday. Seriously, I had to think about that. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday. We're back with day 3 of Cognitive Distortion from Karma Gaia. And good morning, Muddy. I'm a few minutes late because I decided to just take my time this morning and had to have my coffee, so... I think I mischose on the lipstick, though. I'm not very happy with this color. Not with this outfit. Anyways, let's get going. I don't know. I'm feeling a little confident today. So I'm just going to run over Cognitive Distortions, day 1, day 2, and then we're going to get to day 3. All right. I just want to keep covering these because technically they're all supposed to go together. So I figure, hey, let's just do it that way. All right. So oh, I forgot all my rings. Thanks. So, Muddy says she likes my cup. It's the same on both sides, but it says good vibes. Believe it or not, I went with my cousins G-dubbing. That's what they call Goodwill. Those are our secondhand stores, I guess. And I went with my cousins because sometimes you just find cool stuff. I found this cup for like $2. Seriously? I mean, in the store, this thing goes for like $15. Now, it's not about the bargain hunting. It's really about just finding things that you love. Like, you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? Or woman's in this case, or whoever. Somebody's trash was my treasure. So, yeah, I'm in love with that mug. It was like calling to me. In fact, I think that was the only thing I bought all day. But it is kind of fun to browse through there. I found a tarot deck for like $10 in there. Actually, my dad went with them one time, and I'm pointing because I have one of them here. He bought me 2 decks, and they were fresh and brand new, and you know, so don't knock those secondhand stores. And you know, they do help with charities. Now, I'm going to dispel a myth before I get into Karma Gaia, before I get into the Cognitive Distortion. So a lot of people say, oh yeah, Goodwill doesn't give to anybody else. Actually, Goodwill is the charitable organization. And I didn't really know that until Sissy Joe passed something, and somebody in her office got it, and he came in and he says, you know what, this is what I'm going to tell you about Goodwill. Everything that they sell, it supports their own organization. It supports their education, their gyms, and they are also very good at giving people who would have a harder time finding a job. So, you know, and this person that we know is disabled and paralyzed from the waist down. So he utilizes their gym a lot, and it's a little bit, it's less expensive, plus it's a little more mobility friendly. So, you know, do your homework before you pass things on, because sometimes you just don't know. And I was told that day, and I'm grateful that I was told that day because I had no idea. So anyways, you know what I realized? I realized I have painting vibes, right? Like I'm going to go paint the room or something, but I'm not. I'm going to let my hair down and do some writing today. But, so yeah, I have writer vibes today. I do not know what got into me. I have to tell you guys, last night I had the wildest dream. I mean, it was like a full movie. I literally had a full movie dream. There were no breaks, no nothing. I mean, it was weird how I ended up from one place to another with other people. But yeah, we were after these bad guys. So, you know, I don't know, somebody would say maybe that could be a story. It probably could be. And it was so funny because when they finally got, now this part I know where it came from because I watched this right before I went to sleep, but right before I went to sleep, I was watching Professor of Rock, and they were doing something, I think it was Professor of Rock on YouTube, and they were doing like showing it was Ms. Mojo or something, and they were showing Mojo UK. I can't remember which one it is. It's a YouTube channel, and they were showing Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation. But at the end, all the people that got arrested were dressed like the people in Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation. I was like, well, that's a throwback. And I think I gave it extra thought because I had that cassette, right? That's how old I am. And Yeah, it was sad. I accidentally left it behind at the hotel when we went to Disneyland. So this is before I moved up north. But anyways, let's get to this. I've already wasted 5 minutes of your time talking about my stuff. So, cognitive distortions are irrational, biased ways of thinking that can negatively affect our perception of reality. They often lead to heightened anxiety, depression, or low self-esteem. Fortunately, with awareness and practice, it's possible to overcome thought patterns and improve mental well-being. Excuse me. Number 1, recognize the distortion. All or nothing thinking, there's no middle ground. Overgeneralization, making broad assumptions based on one single event. Catastrophizing, always expecting the worst. Mental filtering, focusing on the negative only. So, I had a bit of a challenge with that with my dad yesterday. So, I got to keep my beliefs to myself because he's just not on board with some of that. And it's not his fault. He's just going through a lot of stuff. And like I said, he comes from I want to say he comes from a different generation, but part of that generation is what taught me some of this. So he just came from a different upbringing, is what I should say. So yesterday was challenge negative thoughts. And I'm going to flip this the way I think it should have been done. Are you focusing on the worst case scenario? Do you have evidence to support the thought? Do you have evidence to support the negative thought? And is there a more balanced way to view the situation? Is there a more balanced way to view the situation? I think there is always a more balanced way to view the situation, but a lot of times we don't look at it that way because, depending on the situations that we've had to deal with, depending on our backgrounds and whether or not there's been trauma or if there's been some kind of bullying or something or whatever it is that might have led you to be more of a negative thinker than a positive thinker instead of more of a balanced thinker. There is a better way. There's always a better way than negativity. I mean, seriously, if somebody, challenges you to a fight, do you walk away or do you fight them? I would walk away, not because I'm afraid, but because what is it going to prove? What is it going to prove? It takes more strength to walk away than it does to just partake. And sometimes it's hard. I do have a mouth on me. And, and I will stand up for my people. I don't always stand up for myself, but I will stand up for my people. So today we're going to talk about overcoming the cognitive distortion of this one's just writing. After challenging distorted thinking, replace it with a more accurate or constructive thought. Instead of saying, I failed, so I am a complete failure, try this. I made a mistake, but I can learn from it. Reframing thoughts is courageous, optimistic, and promises personal growth. Promotes, but it does promise personal growth. This is 100% true. And I'm going to say that because if I were a dog, I would be basically, if I were a dog and my owner took me to dog training, I would automatically be a cat and just do whatever the hell I want. Because, not because, but in a cat, well, that's probably a bad example. In a cat's case, they're just stubborn, right? But I take a while to learn because I'm so stuck in my ways, all right? So say I'm this older dog adopted from the pound and nobody's cared about me for the first 6 years of my life, and all of a sudden somebody says, hey, I want to love you, but I need to train you because, maybe they live in a smaller place, right? They don't have this yard. And so you kind of get set in your ways. And a lot of times, like I watch this one guy, I can't think of his name now, but he's also on YouTube and he's great. A lot of these people will call him in and he sits with dogs and he's so patient, right? He's so patient. And I think his name is Rocky something. Oh God, I can't think of his name right now. But all these dogs have been through something. Okay. And I know it's weird that I'm using like an animal reference on this, but it's true. All these dogs have been through something and they're absolutely terrified. And but he sits with them. He doesn't force them into anything. He just sits there with them. And after a few minutes, he'll put a treat on his lap. And then he just gets the animal more comfortable until the point where a lot of times they're just in his lap within, I'm not sure how much time has lapsed that he's been sitting in the cage. Obviously they cut it down for certain things, but, also, I'll use my baby girl, Pixel, as an example. Pixel was an early mom from what we understood. And, Sibling and I always talk about whether or not to bring a new pet into the house because, it can upend things. And Pixel and Lily never really got along. But I told Sibling, I said, look, we really got to think about this one. This poor cat has been in the rescue for over 2 years, okay? And she was so what they call barn sour that, she would just kind of look at you and be like, whatever. Like she just sat by the open screen door and just stared out all day because people would pick her up and put her back down because she did have a disability. This cat can run, but people didn't see that because she's got an interesting gait to her. She kind of has she got a swagger. She's got a swagger. That's what I call it. I call it the Mae West gait. All right, so if you know anything about Mae West and how she walks with her hips, that's kind of, Pixel. And she's also got the bunny hop, right? And so when she goes downstairs, because she was torn apart by coyotes and barely survived, her family surrendered her, and there's a lot of places out there that would have fixed her for free, but it was a lot of work to rehab her. And, thank goodness for the Ontario Rescue. All right. So we had to we had to make a good drive over almost an hour just to go get her. But I'm telling you, it was like night and day, right? This cat came home and she immediately, we put her in the cat bed that no other cat liked, and she loved it. It became her bed, but she slept with older sibling that night. And the next day, she wouldn't come down. And the next week, I finally brought her downstairs. And since then, she has been the alpha male and running the house. So you're probably wondering what this has to do with, changing your thoughts. If people would have given this cat a chance, they would have seen how lovey she is. I mean, she is a cuddle bunny. She kind of calls the shots, yes, but she's a cuddle bunny. She likes to snuggle up to you. She's cute in a lot of different ways. Cats do get a bad rap. But when it comes to the dog training, right? We tend to give up. I know. Thank you, Sammy. I miss her so much. I mean, I miss George too, but George is really older sibling's cat. Pixel it's kind of both of ours, but she's a little more mine than hers. Well, the attitude, that's why. But really, you're probably wondering, well, why are you using dogs and cats as an example? Because as humans, we can get that way. Fear. We can become feral. People hear the word feral and they automatically think, right? But feral can be a lot of things. Feral can be literally a scaredy cat. My very, very, very first kitty, Riley, she was very feral. And that's how I met one of my very dear, dear friends, Bunny. She was a little older. She's since passed away. But, we became great friends for about 10 or 15 years. And she taught me how to get Riley to come out of her shell. And it does take patience. But Riley wasn't the hissing, growling type. She was scared. She would hide wherever she could hide, And I think that's what this is talking about. We're challenging this distorted thinking. Yesterday I talked about being single forever in a lifetime, and I realize a lot of that's my fault because I am afraid. It goes back to are you focusing on the worst case scenario? Yes, I am. And why do I always have to make the first move, right? Someone else make the first move. And, do you have evidence to support the thought, though, that this worst case scenario will happen? No, we don't. So instead of sitting there going, oh yeah, well, nobody wants me, or I'm this size, or I'm that size, or, I haven't had a date in like a gazillion years, and blah, 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 and yada, 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 maybe they won't like me. I think there's a lot more people like me out there that are like that. And we do have that fear. And it's, people would call it an irrational fear, but I don't really think it is. I think it's, when we go through healing, we change. We change a lot when we go through healing. And it's literally like having a second life. It really does feel, for me at least, in my opinion, like you're being reborn. It's like, coming out of the womb, an adult, and you're like, whoa, everything looks so different now. But we still have those reservations because, we're thinking negatively. So where it says I failed, so I am a complete failure, no, change that. I used to be a perfectionist, and not a very good one, but I used to be, and by that I mean it's like I did make a lot of mistakes, but I hated making mistakes. I always felt like it degraded me in some way. I always felt like it made me less than somebody else if I made a mistake. And it didn't. What it did was give me another way to learn how not to do something, right? There's that one famous quote, I didn't fail, I just learned how not to do it. And I think that's a perfect example. I didn't fail, I learned how not to do it. So we learn from these mistakes. We learn from our missteps. We learn from these obstacles that, maybe we're hurdling that hurdle, right? And we trip and we knock the hurdle over, but you get up and you keep moving forward, right? You don't stand there and look at the hurdle. No, you got to finish the race. You don't stand there and look at the hurdle and go, well, how did that happen? No, you keep going. You keep moving forward and say, okay, well, you know what? I need to jump higher. Or maybe I need to pick up my speed, or maybe I need to pick up that back leg just a little bit. We're all going to stumble over our hurdles. We're all going to stumble over these obstacles, and that's okay. That's okay. The moment it really clicked in my mind that I didn't need to be a perfectionist, the moment it clicked in my mind that it was okay to fall down or to trip over that obstacle or to fail, was the best day of my life, because I stopped trying so hard to be somebody I wasn't. I personally believe that perfect people do not exist. We are perfectly imperfect. You may think that that person over there looks perfect from head to toe, but you don't know. Maybe they're single and maybe, they're sad because people are afraid to approach them because they already either one, think that they'll say no, or two, that, oh, they must have somebody already, or they'll turn me down, or that person over there, he's so cute, but he wouldn't like me because this, that, or the other. Don't think that way. All right. I mean, I'm not telling you to go out there and ask everybody out. I'm just using that as an example that we hold ourselves back because of fear. We hold ourselves back because of fear. That's the cognitive distortion. We hold ourselves back out of fear of failure, out of fear of stumbling, out of fear of making a mistake. They're all the same thing: failure, mistake, stumbling. But how we approach it is a completely different matter. Is there a more balanced way to view the situation? Yes. So you knocked over the hurdle. Keep running anyways, because you don't know that someone else isn't going to knock over the hurdle. You might finish first. Just keep running. Keep moving forward. Keep going. Because when we stop and we start to stare at all the mistakes that we make, we're just holding ourselves back. And we're kind of pinning ourselves down into a situation that we don't need to be pinned down into. I spent far too long worrying about who I was, how the world saw me, and feeling bad about myself. I'm 52 years old now, and since I hit my 50s, I feel like I've hit my stride. I mean, I really only feel like I've gotten the healing thing down in the last couple of years, right? Or maybe even at the end of my 40s. But the reason I know a lot of people don't like to share their age, but I'll be honest with you, I'm very proud of my age, just because when I was 3, I was born with a congestive heart defect. So, which means I was born with a hole in my heart. Well, that's not what it means. It means I was born with a heart defect. That's what congenital, sorry, not congestive. I'm thinking of my dad, because my dad has congestive heart failure, which is not deadly. It just sounds like it. It just means part of his heart, it's not working. I had congenital, that means born with, congenital heart defect. And I've had limitations on me all my life. And my mom was very, very protective. I'm her only kid, right? And my dad would be like, you gotta let her do stuff. But there were other factors in that. But I see people that, you know, do find themselves having limitations as they get older. I'm going to use my father as an example. He's frustrated because he's not getting better faster, and, you know, and he can, but if he would listen to me. But, you know, because I mean, I caregive for older sibling when she needs it, and I have to tell her some of the same things. So it's not like I'm new to this. It's not like I'm just, you know, winging it. But, you know, but people can be stubborn because it's hard for them. It's hard for people, even younger, to have limitations. Sissy Joe got cancer in her late 30s, and she was limited. And this is a girl who zipped all over the place, you know, that was just kind of here. I used to always tell her that The Flight of the Bumblebees was like her song. That was her text tone or her ringtone on my phone for the longest time, because she's just always zipping everywhere. And, you know, when she had cancer the first time and the second time, you know, the second time she was a little more determined, and she was determined to not let it slow her down like it did the first time. And the second time was a lot worse. I mean, clearly, because we lost her. But, you know, she fought that for like almost 8 years. So, you know, it's all about the attitude. It's all how we look at things. Does a situation seem dire? It can. Okay. I had to, you know, I had to gratitude my attitude. That's what I call it. I had to gratitude my attitude when it comes to taking care of my dad. Because I realized, look, this is a guy who's never felt limited in his life. You know, he's always been healthy. He's always had strength. And now it's frustrating because he was there and then he went backwards. So it's all about getting the strength back and then figuring out how to adjust. And, you know, of course, when he was in the hospital, they offered him skilled nursing facility. All right. When you tell somebody who's 79 years old, yeah, we'd like to send you to a skilled nursing facility, what is the first thing you think? You think nursing home. It's a rehab center. And if they would just start with rehab and just say, look, we're going to send you to rehab. It's called skilled nursing, but it's just because, you know, it's a rehab center. But they start off with the other one, and that automatically, for some people, just nope. I don't need that because that means I'm old. That means I'm not moving anymore. No, what it means is they're going to give you physical therapy. They're going to make sure you eat 3 times a day. And, you know, I try to make sure he eats 3 times a day, but good luck with that, because again, you know, if my dad is one of those that right now he's just frustrated with the situation. And so constantly being asked, I think it makes him feel like a child. So I'm doing my best to just kind of, you know, be cool. But it was frustrating me for a while. So I realized, you know, especially after reading this, I realized, you know what? I'm the one that really has to change. I have to change my attitude, and I have to go at his pace, maybe push him a little when necessary, or maybe plant the seed here and there and let him think about it for a while, but not nag. Okay, nagging never works for anyone. Nagging doesn't work for me. But I was scared. Because I told you guys yesterday, I'm not ready to be an orphan. I'm not ready to be an orphan. So at the orphalin's home. I know that was part of the movie. The orphan in the orphalin's home. And she was talking about her dolls, okay? But anyway, but it's really not up to me. You know, what I'm ready for, I wasn't ready for my mom to die either, but she did. And that threw me into a tailspin for a good 10 years. And I didn't even realize it. In fact, I really just feel like I'm coming out of it now, because it was just so much happened so fast. And then all the healing started because I knew I had to get myself out of this funk. And then people passed away during that time. I lost Sissy Joe just not even a year after I lost my mom. And it's like these 2 women in my life. And it was just, this is where all the cognitive distortions came in. You know, all of a sudden you're afraid. It's like, well, I don't want to go to the doctor because what if they tell me I'm sick? Or, you know, I don't want to do this because what if they do that? Or I don't want to do this because, you know, and then what happens? You end up not living. You end up, you know, sitting and doing nothing. You're not living. You're not experiencing life the way it should be experienced. You know, I shared one of my favorite memes yesterday, you know, adult being an adult is like looking both ways, before crossing the street and being hit by an airplane. And, it's gruesome when you think about it, yeah, but it's just anything can happen. And if we continually think about what can happen, we're not making things happen. We're not making things happen in our own lives. We're just sitting like a feral human, afraid to walk outside, afraid to go outside, afraid to do anything because it's scary out there, right? And I do get it. I do know there are people who have, I think it's agoraphobia, where they're afraid of the outdoors. And I do. Or introverts that stay inside, or hoarders that never leave their house. And it's sad. And people will watch these shows and think, oh my God, how can they let this happen? A lot of it is mental health. A lot of it is mental health. I watch the show Hoarders much differently than a lot of people do. Because, and I'm not saying everybody, because a lot of people just look at it and, maybe they've never had trauma. Maybe they've never had a dinged up mental health, and they just sit there. And I think a lot of times there's more pity, but, there's always that, how can they live that way? What? Oh my God, how could you let your house get that way? Because they're trying to nest because it's safe. Being surrounded by stuff is safe for them. It's almost like getting the hug you didn't get as a child, right? I always got hugs as a child, so I'm not deprived there. And I love giving hugs. I will hug a stranger if they ask me. Okay, I will. I love giving hugs because hugs are so empowering for people. If you just hold somebody for like 30 seconds, you can feel it. And you're giving them something that maybe they need in that moment, And I remember I saw a girl. No. Oh, yeah, I was at Disneyland. She's like, her shirt said, I need a hug. And I'm all, if you still need a hug, I'm willing to hug you. And she's like, yeah. She's like, you're like the first person. It was afternoon. She's like, you're the first person that actually took my shirt seriously. And it's like, no, I'll give you a hug. And it was just, and then you're giggling, you're talking, you're just having fun. And then you all say goodbye and go your separate ways. And then you might see each other through the park and you're just waving. But we have to challenge the distorted thinking. We have to move out of the space of fear and remind ourselves that you didn't fail. You learned how to do something not that way again, right? So it says here, instead of saying I failed, so I'm a complete failure, say this: I made a mistake, but I can learn from it. Learn from your mistakes. It can be scary. It can be hard. I always do my best to not sugarcoat this stuff because I don't want people to just sit there and go, I don't want to sugarcoat things because it's not fair to you to sit there and go, oh yeah, go off on your healing journey. It's great. But then they don't tell you about everything in between. See, that's where I started. Everyone's all like, I read all these books. Oh yeah, my healing journey was this and I needed to do that. But nobody talked about how hard it was because everybody's journey is different. One person that follows me, that follows behind me in the healing journey may just zip right through it. But some people like me, it takes us a while. And part of that is because we do not know how to go with the flow, because we let cognitive distortions get in our way, and we have to stop. That is the first thing you should nip in the bud, is cognitive distortions, because they're not going to help you. They're going to hinder you. They're going to hurt you, and they're going to hold you back. I sometimes wonder how much farther my healing would have been if I just would have trusted myself. If I just would have trusted the situation, if I would have gone with the flow and trusted the path, trusted the journey. But I realized, I thought at one point that I was a failure because it took me so long. But then I looked at all the people around me that would come to me and talk to me, and I would help them through things. And I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just saying, when I would help them, I realized, oh my God, I really have come a lot farther than I realized. But I kept thinking I was a failure because it took me so long. And that's, again, when I realized, no, I didn't fail. Maybe the point was to show people, if you trust the process and you trust yourself first, it's going to go a lot faster and it's going to go a lot smoother. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to trip over those hurdles. You're going to stumble over those obstacles. And that's okay. Just keep moving forward. Keep going. You know, don't quit on yourself. Don't stop. If you need to take a break, take a break. If you need to take a day off or two to just decompress from everything you're learning and everything you're teaching yourself, and, you know, just do it. Because relearning how to be more positive and less negative, it can be very stressful and it can be very draining and hard, because you are going against a lifetime of your own cognitive distortions. But you have the choice to get yourself better. Only you can make that choice. Nobody can make that choice for you. So give yourself a chance. Stop thinking you're a failure. And again, after challenging distorted thinking, replace it with a more accurate or constructive thought. Instead of saying I failed, so I am a complete failure, try I made a mistake, but I can learn from it. Reframing thoughts encourages optimism and promotes personal growth. Reframing thoughts. So reframe your thoughts. Yeah, see, Sammy says it perfectly. Lifetime indoctrination takes a lot of work to replace. You know, it really does. It takes a lot of work to replace that. So just give yourself some grace, give yourself some patience, and most importantly, give yourself the trust in you. I wish I would have learned to trust myself a lot sooner. But like I said, I think my thing is to show people, hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just keep going. You know, if you keep stumbling, let's talk. All right? Just come talk to me. You know, we'll open up some dialogue and figure out where it is that you're stuck, and we're good, right? We'll help you figure it out. And I think the other reason is that, you know, everyone thinks, oh, well, by 50, I should have everything together. I know a lot of people who have their shit more together than I do. Like, seriously. And I used to belittle myself, and I used to put myself down for that. And now I realize, you know what? Maybe I'm here to be an example, one of the many people, not just me, but maybe I'm here to be the example that it doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you heal. Life can begin at any age, right? Life can begin at any age. So we just have to give ourselves that trust, and we have to give ourselves that chance. And that's the most important part, giving ourselves that trust and that chance to do better by ourselves. You know, not by ourselves, but to do better for ourselves. And, you know, to just, you know, get it together. Get it together. I'll give you one last example. I've been talking about, I'm really getting back into my French classes again. I took French in high school because Spanish class was taken up. So it was my second choice. I don't know. I also wanted to take German, but that did happen because I got French instead because, you know, but interestingly enough, part of it was because, I mean, my last name we always thought was German, but it turns out it's Belgian, and Belgians actually they do speak Flemish, I believe, but I also think they speak French, maybe? I think. I'm not sure. Now I'm not sure. But I didn't want to take German. But I ended up in French class. But there was a lot of trauma and turmoil and a lot of coming to terms with things during my high school years. And so I didn't remember a lot. But, you know, here I am in my, you know, I tried again in my 40s to learn French, and I just kind of, But then Bestie started taking French, and I was like, ooh, now I'll have someone to talk to. And of course, AI. I told him yesterday, I said, I was talking French online. Oh, thank you, Sammy. So the Belgians also do speak French. And maybe that's where, maybe it just came to me naturally because of my great-great-grandfather, and my great-great-grandmother. But, yeah, I'm a mutt. That's why Sammy and I call each other Muddy, because, you know, we're definitely mutts. But yeah, I'm starting to learn it again. And, you know, people will think, oh, why are you going to France? It's like, well, I'd love to go to Disneyland Paris, but I'd also love to eat my way through Paris and France. Just, I could live off of wine, bread, and cheese and some beer. I really could. The other night, my cousin and I went to the Paris Cafe in Claremont, and I got a baguette. She's like, "Did you share it with your dad?" I'm like, "No." I just sat down with some bread and cheese and had at it. So, and that was my dinner. That was my lunch too. But I just, oh my God, it's just two of my things. It's got to be ingrained in my DNA somewhere. But no, anyways, I know I'm going off topic again, but this is what I'm talking about. It's never too It's never too late to learn something. And getting rid of cognitive distortions is one of the first things you should be doing if you are on a healing journey. Even if you're not on a healing journey, if you find yourself in a negative situation, you may be a person that's just positive all the time. But every so often, somebody might upend you, right? Then just get rid of the cognitive distortion, replace the negative thought with a constructive thought, with a positive thought. All right, we're not going to be positive every second of every day. We're human. That's just how we are. There are some people that probably are, like monks, but everybody makes mistakes, okay? And I'm not saying that in jest when I say monks. I mean, I follow some of the things, and it's like they're so zen, right? They're so zen. But, you know, I'm sure they have their moments in their head, but they have gotten cognitive distortion down on constructive thinking. They're the ones that teach us how to be positive. They're the ones that say, hey, what you put out there is what you're going to get back. You know, and so be careful how you put things out there. You know, just be careful how you put things out there, because you do not know how it's going to come back to you. Say it in the divine right way, or, you know, or something better, because what you might be asking for may not necessarily be meant for you. So, and you don't want to be disappointed. So just give yourself some leeway, give yourself some space, and give yourself some patience and grace. Hey, that rhymed. So I can't remember what I said, but I mean, I can, but it just kind of flew out of my face. So anyways, I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back here tomorrow for, we'll talk about mindfulness tomorrow. Ooh, that'll be a good one. We'll talk about mindfulness. And then Monday is number 5. So over the weekend, you'll be able to think about all these other things, and we'll briefly go over the other stuff. So I think tomorrow I'll start with lesson 4, and then we'll go back over the other things for those that may be coming in or came in late or haven't watched the previous shows. So again, thank you so much for watching. Sammy, thank you for coming on again. She's my co-host. I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day. And remember, when you have a negative thought, just say, you know, you could even say it, right? If you get kind of paranoid, just say, I do not wish to manifest this into reality. All right. I do not wish to manifest this into reality, or I do not wish this to be my reality. Something along those lines, whatever works for you. Okay. So you don't manifest the bad things, because remember, you may not believe in universal energy, but the universal energy definitely believes in you. So, you know, Murphy's Law, whatever you want, karma, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. So again, have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelley Marie Lucas. And, yeah, have a great Thursday.